And we welcome you back with open arms at the spiritual marketplace, which is actually the final 10th stage of ox herding. But we have, in the first half, in an hour and a half, gone through this language lesson, they're calling it, all the correlations between some of the basic problems and some of the early teachings and some of the higher teachings, all mixed in here, in both Zen and Advaita Vedanta, using Japanese and Sanskrit. So we have digested that, or at least we've heard it, and we can digest it, and we'll leave it open to, like discussions we had here at the break when we were having some prasad fruit just now, about the going beyond tolerance and getting to this level of mutual understanding, because we're living in a world that has different races, different religions, and different levels of mind. When you get to the different levels of mind and so forth, that's where harmony becomes more possible than just at the commonplace level where people are seeing differences. So seeing the sameness in everything is philosophically is what this is about. And I wanted to mention here, as we passed, I missed one thing in this chart, and it really helps to actually to bring it up, is that when we were looking at ordinary everyman's consciousness, you could see there, Banpo no Jishiki, I was saying how that was a very good thing in Zen. It's like you returning to your true nature is how I was trying to explain that. You just, become, it's not like you become great. You just become very small and humble, and that's just what the Lord loves. And so you can reach more people, and you act as, if there's like Sri Ramakrishna even said, Mother, take this light away from me, because people couldn't understand him or get close to him. And he said, just take it inside where it belongs. So he didn't want his light to shine out, like some of the lyrics of the songs in the 60s, oh, shine your light and all that. Well, in this case, with spiritual light as broad and as vast as his, then, people couldn't even get near you. Give them a pair of sunglasses, as they say, so they can even see that light. So in that way, he said, Mother, take this all in. And then just certain people would come to him at that point who were really sincere. So it was kind of a natural filter against mystery mongers or sensation seekers, which is one of these Zen sicknesses that we're going to segue into right now. I'll take you through this quick, but we'll look at the Zen side of it and then look at the Atmic line taming. But right now I'm choosing these teachings that pair them off against each other so we can see the differences and similarities. The differences being accents, not any difference at all, I think, in my study. The differences mean accents that certain religions put on teachings for their followers in that particular tradition. So back here, when you say every man's consciousness across the board, I didn't get to it, was called Vyavaharika, which of course is the opposite of that. What I meant to say there was that Vyavaharika is just attachment to empirical life, empiricism and conventional life, and so that's not what is really meant by every man's consciousness. It's actually what you want to avoid in order to get to every man's consciousness. So that needs a little bit further explanation. Couldn't find a word that I hadn't already used, like sahaja, to explain this natural state of samadhi that comes upon a practitioner who reaches the stage of an adept beyond the intermediate and beginner stages. So I put Vyavaharika in there to indicate what they mean by every man's consciousness, is that you're not caught in convention anymore and worldliness, as Sri Ramakrishna called it. And therefore, that's something to take note of and be free of, Vyavaharika. And what you'd want was samarthika. The opposite of Vyavaharika is samarthika. It's just, this is the higher, this beyond relativity. Every time you hear those words that start with sama, you know that that's a very positive thing and very spiritual in nature. So good that we could mention this once more and and bring it to a close. And then let's look at these kinds of Zen sickness, because they too have correlations into the practice of whatever you want to call it. Hinduism in America, yoga, Vedanta now is becoming a little bit more known, and of course Buddhism itself, which has its Tibetan and its Zen and Dzogchen now, Chinese. All of these are beginning to come forward, have come forward sometimes, have had their day, like Tibetan for a while, but they continue to find expressions in the Americans who are starting organizations and teaching those teachings, and some of the Americans even becoming Rinpoches and Tulkus and so forth. So in that way, like Americans becoming Swamis in our tradition, in our order, that's a very good thing that this is carried on. But it has its first wave and then backs off, leaves a few of those dedicated souls that stuck to it, like we did with Vedanta back in the 70s when we first heard it, some of us in our 20s. And basically behind it all is this yearning for freedom and, avoiding pathways that are masquerading, telling you you can get this if you do this. Sort of like selling snake oil back in the Old West. This will cure everything. And people are buying into it and buying it. So you want to be careful of that, those kind of zembyo, or moyoi they call it, these kinds of sicknesses. So let's look at that really quickly. Avoiding errors on the dharmic pathway is what you could say as a definition for that word. The goal of Zen is Bussho, consciously living in one's immanent nature, which is devoid of mass, beyond individuality and personality, and outside the realm of imagination, synonymous with shunyata. So shunyata in the Madhyamaka, Nagarjuna, all the middle era of those 52 generations that happened, in India and China, shunyata became the main word to describe emptiness. And there were one or two Buddhist schools, we won't name them right now, but they actually got misled by a misunderstanding of shunyata. So the Buddhists got a little bit more specific about it, and I think Zen, when it came to Zen, they got a little bit more clear about it. Zen is known for its clarity and simplicity, and so like things like every man's consciousness and all that, would give people a different view than the sensational walking on water kind of thing that you might get in Middle Eastern or Caucasian religion, Caucasian-based religions. The Asians coming forth with a lot of this, and like I say, even saying, yeah, we have sickness here in religion. It's like Swami Vivekananda was saying that, and Sri Krishna was saying it in the Gita too. These dharmas rise and they fall from age to age. And so he knows this already. So if he, like Lord Buddha, took a body, he'll look at the age and say, oh, I see where they're at right now. And that happened with Swami Vivekananda when he came here. He saw where India was, which wasn't in a good place. He saw where the West was, which was also not in a good place with its materialism. And he knew that he was in the Kali Yuga on this cycle where religion had declined. So he said, that's not religion, that's irreligion. That's not truth, that's superstition. I mean, he would just come and call it out in front of religious clergy, both Brahmin priests and Christian priests. He would call it out and say what it was. And got him into a few tiffs occasionally, but he wouldn't change his stance, because that's what you do when you have the truth. You want to go and unveil it to people. And you can if you're a sannyasin. So on the way you're going to find different kinds of sickness. I'm sure you could name them in Christianity, you could name them in Judaism, you could name them in yoga. And Zen is naming them as these. 5 types: Banpo, Gedo, Shoujo, Daijo, and Saijojo. The first we said on this chart, an unenlightened person practicing Zen for bodily and mental health. Gedo Zen, the outside way, where you mix Zen with teachings from other traditions. Shoujo Zen, small vehicle, mainly seeks discontinuation of rebirth and cycles. So it's getting finer, isn't it? But it's very interesting, is that if you want to get enlightenment just to get beyond rebirth, then of course you're not going to know that the soul's never born to begin with. See? So you're throwing a philosophical curve at yourself. And maybe the tradition isn't helping you see that either, depending on what teacher you've taken, you see. So you want to stay with one good, authentic teacher till you understand that you're not just here to get beyond rebirth because you were never born. I mean, we could sing it to you Advaita Vedanta way if you like. Aham Nirvikalpo Nirakara Rupo Vibhutvacha Sarvatra Sarvendriyanam Nacha Sangatam Naiva Muktir Nameya Nacha Sangatam Naiva Muktir Nameya Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. So I have no form, I have no longing, I have no fancy. Vivekananda's own translation here of Shankara's Stotram. The all-pervading am I. Everywhere I exist, yet I am beyond the senses. Neither salvation am I, nor anything that can be known. I am pure consciousness and bliss. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. Sounds like the way Avadhut concluded his verses too, doesn't it? And pure consciousness and pure bliss. But of course, pertinent to what we were just saying about this particular Zen sickness that they list here, Shoujo Zen, about ever thinking you were born in the first place and you're trying to get off the rebirth cycle. It's not going to be as effective as if you have this truth of non-duality that we would call in Advaita Vedanta, or knowledge that your oxen never left home in the first place. You know, you can put it in simple terms, or you can put it in philosophical terms. Because then Shankar would sing, Namrichor Nashanka Name Jati Beda Pitanaiva Menaiva Mata Najanma. Namrichor, I have no death. Mrichor is death. Na Shanka Name Jati Beda. Beda, Jati is birth, right? So I have no death because I was never born. You don't understand. I have no death, there's no death for me because I was never born. So a kind of small vehicle, which Buddhism is known for, you know, all the way back to Hinayana, to Mahayana, to Vajrayana, and so forth. The vehicle got wider and wider, means more and more people could understand it. They made it, arguably, more understandable to more people. At least they exposed it to more people, because it got as complex as Vedanta can get, and yoga can get too. Yoga is one of the more complex darshanas of India, I think. Patanjali outlines that in the sutras, how deep that can go in different directions. So, yet the vehicle grew larger, more popularity came to it, more people practicing it, more people avowing, you know, Buddha Dharma Sangha, that's my path, or Guru Dharma Sangha, that's my path. And so the small vehicles, then people still would adhere to it. I need to get out of this rebirth cycle. So they have some sort of fear about rebirth, which doesn't actually really happen because the soul isn't born and doesn't die. So the reasoning isn't sound yet. Non-duality is certainly not understood yet. And we already read, the goal of Zen is Bussho, consciously living in one's immanent nature. That's the perfection. That's the Atman. Abiding in the Atman, we would call it. So we make those correlations then between Atman and Bussho, and also between Anatman and Ahamkara. The non-self is also a direct correlation. This will get rid of any potential problems in dialogue that we'll want to have when a Roshi gets together with a Swami or an Advaitist. That this understanding will be on the same page and words won't get in the way. Well, there's also Daijo Zen, the great vehicle, observes the unity of all things, and Zen in everyday life. There we are, it's pretty much just what I was saying. And then Saijojo Zen, supreme vehicle, where way, path, and goal are all fused in one. So you can see two of these are, we say, kind of sickness. One of them is a small vehicle, and the other two are more to the point. Amongst these subcategories of sickness in Zen, you have Buji Zen. That's a light and immature attitude towards the teachings, wherein practitioners think that since they are already Buddha nature, they do not have to do practice and seek enlightenment. I've had people in this room within the last 6 months who have that sickness. Then there's Yako Zen, wild fox Zen, inflicting those who pretend to be enlightened but really only mouth the teachings, having no deep or true realization of the Dharma whatsoever. You know how deep the Dharma goes if you've been with SRV for the 30 years of since its inception, if you want to call it that, and how it connects back to great teachers like the disciples of Holy Mother, my teacher Swami Sheshananda, like Sixen's teacher Swami Nikhilananda, how deep the Dharma goes and how far back the tradition goes, and to what great, and they call it 3 pillars of Zen here, and we would call it the 3 pillars of Sharada, Ramakrishna, and Vivekananda in India, because that same being who is Rama and Krishna has now come again, as Vivekananda said, in the form of Ramakrishna. So we see how long-lived this is, and there's not going to be any wild foxes in those stables. It's bad for the chickens. Hassan, we talked about on this chart, interruption of Zen practice by an enlightened experience. Celebrated but not stressed, that keeps the aspirant from gaining many more and higher profound experiences. So you want to note these things in your growth. It's sort of like Holy Mother saying, it's vanity to judge your spiritual growth. You should just do the practice and commune with your guru and make the progress, that's all. A lot of these things that you'll come upon that could be sicknesses or could be back to the problem of distractions will simply not come up in you if you can just follow the tradition that way, as said in, that's back to Buji Zen, where you think you're already perfect, so you're going to have some sort of arrogance about learning it from anyone. Americans have that as a sickness for sure, and not only in their religious life, but in their politics, the way they treat the world. Zenbyo is Zen sickness itself, which make up the host of distracting thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations, appearances, broodings that arise during the course of a student's practice of Zen. We had that already down here when we said Zenbyo, right? I mean, people just pretty much getting up every day to complain. First about their own problems, how sick they are, how many distractions are in their life, what the politicians are doing wrong, and various injustices that are going in the world, and pandemics that are happening to them, everything but God. So, how is God going to make it through all that to you if you're never going to even bring him into the occasion, him, her, it, You have to call Brahman him, her, it in India, or him, her, that, because it's got form, Ishvar and Ishvari, at the highest level of form, but then it's got Brahman. Not hanging out on these very long, they're probably obvious to everyone in the room, but it's good to cite them, that particularly along the angle that I'm bringing them forward, is that if you've got a sickness, admit it, and get over it, note it, and warn against it. Zen is very clear about that. Bono is another one. Worldliness, sensuality, passions, longings, suffering, and misery, all rising from a false view of the world. It's a good one. We were talking about that again on our drive today. This false view of the world is letting Maya in as if it were real, but it's not. Ignorance is not real. Pramadina na sandeyaha kim karashyami vrittiman, Yavatut says. Ignorance is not real, so how can it cause you any real doubt? See? How can you let something unreal cause you real suffering, when suffering's not real to begin with? And it wouldn't have been there if you had have disallowed this false view. So if you have a false view, like my ox is missing, you've got to go on a long journey. See? You have to endanger yourself in the forest where other animals are there hiding, like tigers, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, just looking for this ox, which is really sitting back home wondering where you went. See? When's he going to feed me? See? Why did he go running off like he was, a first-class fool? Doesn't he just see me? Here I am. Swarupa Pratishta as compared to Swarupa Yatanbhava. They don't recognize the self, essence, Swarupa. We use that word. Compared to those who recognize it and stay established in it, particularly when they're apparently born in this world. Then they can say, I have no birth, I have no death. On the left-hand or right-hand side of this, Goseki, trace of enlightenment, sticking to those practitioners who cling to their initial insight experiences instead of living as if oblivious to their own enlightenment in a natural way. Like Sri Ramakrishna did. Oh, you're such a great master. Don't call me that. That's a thorn. It pricks my flex. He said. Who are you? I don't know. I can't find myself. I've been asking that question of myself for a long time. I can't find any sense of self. Oh, you point to you and says, oh, this is just a pillowcase. See, this body is just a pillowcase. So you're not seeing the true Sri Ramakrishna. And there are practitioners around who this sense of having a few experiences are sticking to them. In fact, Sri Ramakrishna used to say that they stink of Krishna to certain fundamentalist Krishna followers. Because there's fundamentalist narrow Shaivites, and there's fundamentalist narrow Ganapachas, and everyone thinks their own watch keeps the right time, and he was aware of that in India. So Zen, 2 generations later is being brought out, probably in Chinese Buddhism along the way. It developed. Makyo is next. Diabolical phenomena. I like it. Like the negative circumstances of the ordinary world, which the practitioner should not entertain in the mind, letting them turn into mental hallucinations. See? So pretty soon it doesn't connect with the false view of the world back here when you have Bono, you see. So they're really being specific. Some of these things almost sound like each other, but there's subtle differences they want you to know in Zen practice, so you can avoid those sicknesses. They're mental sicknesses. They could probably lead to physical ones if you let them get out of hand, but there's an example of it right there. Do not entertain these things in your mind. They think about Brahman alone. They keep their thoughts on reality alone. The Upanishads say about the secret of these great souls. So see that. Wow, that's their secret. Get up every morning and see what the media's got to say next. getting sucked into your computers, and now they're in your hand, and you can't take your gaze off of them. What's that on your cell phone? I'm reading the Avatutta Stotra. Oh, very good. That's a good way to use technology. And this is the most well-known of Zen sicknesses, kato. Thicket of creeping vines. Meaning falling victim to hearing too many words while failing to take the essence from them. So I use too many words, probably. I hope you're taking the essence from them. But I try and cut off the head and the tail, and I warn you away from certain things that the traditions tell you are distractions. And this is called Dharma practice, and hearing the truth and the truth setting you free. So that's a different thing than just sitting and, as Sri Ramakrishna said, feeding pigeons and the corn and peas just stick in their craw. They never go down to the stomach, get digested. So a teacher who's a superior teacher will make you sit and listen and take these and digest them and repeat them, like the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna does. Repeats so many of these things so many times that pretty soon you know what the 6 passions are, and that they're your enemies. And you know what the 8 fetters are, and you know what the 8 limbs of yoga are. And you know that Buddha was a Hindu man. And on like this. You put it together in practice, and this helps. This gives you insight. Words, the deeper meaning of words begin to suggest themselves to you, and causes smriti rupena samstita. Now I can get established in the meaning of words at a higher level, whereas everyone else is still there, the ocean of relativity, bantering about words on the surface level, and extracting no essence from them. It's obvious. The Dharma becomes very important. So down there is the thicket of creeping vines. Might as well just say Maya, Mayoi. It's almost the same in Japanese. So basically this thicket of creeping vines is Maya, getting to everyone's sensibilities and influencing them. Back to this, so vyavaharika becomes, the problem, and ordinary, humble, peaceful, equanimous consciousness gets to go by, gets to pass. See, it's like if Christ told you to get thee behind me, and you put the wrong things behind you, like your ox. See, no, not that. Keep that in front. So someone has to come along and tell you, keep that. Pan this. So basically there's one quote in the middle, and that took us through this really quickly. The sun shines by day, the moon by night. The warrior is resplendent in armor, and the Brahman radiant in meditation. But Buddha, the awakened one, illumines both day and night by the splendor of his wisdom. So that's from the Dhammapada, Buddha's own words. The Arhats heard him say that when he was alive. So that beautiful saying of those slokas in the Dhammapada, that's early Indian Buddhism. We have to always return to that to check our compass. The Buddha, the awakened one, in other words, shines whether it's day or night, whether sun or moon is shining. And his words we want to hear above all else and take into teaching. That's one of the 3 bodies of the Buddha, is the Dharma teachings. All right, so now let's just move on, which means that I'd like to show you another of one of the charts out of the comparison portion of what we want to take up. That's pretty much going to take up today's class. Next week we'll look at the Zen ox herding as compared to the 9 steps of awakening in Vedanta, you might say. So 10 against 9. We'll see how the ox herders are faring against the lion tamers, and what the score is, and how it penetrates through to us. So with this, again, I was fascinated and compelled to do away with this problem between dialogue in terms of the self and the non-self, and show, instead of this kind of dialectic that goes on that, tries to refute each other, instead you should be looking at the things that correlate and sharing, you see. And then you don't even have to agree to disagree. You can walk up to them and say, I agree to disagree, and you can say, I don't agree with that. See? So they're non-committal. So basically you want to bring out some clarity, and here's where, like Vivekananda is saying, the name for divine reality in Buddha's dialogue was pragyaparam, the supreme intelligence. So that was the God to Buddha, supreme intelligence. So he named himself after that. He couldn't see anything higher than that. And Vivekananda brought that out later, so Buddha-like himself, brought that out by saying, intelligence is the first compound of consciousness. So the first thing out the door, as I often say, from pure conscious awareness is these rays of intelligence, these wisdom rays. Like rays come off a sun, off the word come these rays of everything that's manifested taken from the Atman, or from Bussho, or from Tathagatagarbha. Now, there's that word that I put in this chart side by side with Atman. You can see its definition down below. Let's take that quote first. Here's the meaning of the word Tathagatagarbha in Buddhism. Tata, thus. Gata, the goal, beyond coming and going. Garbha, the root essence. Like almost a mass of, an indeterminable mass of pure conscious awareness. There's no boundaries or borders to it. And it lays outside of time, like I chanted at the beginning of class today. It's Brahman, is all pervasive and inclusive at the same time. So here's the quote. Tathagatagarbha is not I or me, is stationary and immovable, though appearing and vanishing, transcends the human condition, is what really is, suchness, and is the ultimate goal. That's how you would hear it from Zen. Or probably from earlier teachers of Buddhism too, in China. So it really sounds like, as far as we can tell with words, our description of Atman. And it points to this transparency of the self that, like the ox, disappears behind everything that's manifest. And nature would be that at the individual and collective level of consciousness. Nature allures and hypnotizes all beings. Like Sri Ramakrishna saying, good God blog there too. Sri Ramakrishna says, everyone comes to the garden and admires it, but nobody goes to seek out the gardener. So that's what nature, he's talking about nature. It's, oh, look at this, lakes, rivers, streams, mountains, resources, whatever it is that people go towards in nature immediately causes them to forget what's behind nature. The transparent self, Bussho, Atman, Tathagatagarbha, pragyaparam. And there's Lord Buddha's saying there, the actions of an arhat are without trace, they're trackless, like birds flying through the sky. So we saw that used later in Zen, we saw that earlier in Sri Ramakrishna, used that same metaphor. Birds fly through the air but leave no trace. An arhat, by the way, was the name for an illumined soul in Buddha's time. Later on, you had the Bodhisattva thing come up, particularly around Tibetan Buddhism, I think. But Arhat, there were supposed to be some 500 of those after Lord Buddha passed away. And Dhammapada, they had to get together. This is what is said about it. They had to get together and try and remember what Lord Buddha said by words that had been left behind. So it's like Swamiji, everyone's there like a stenographer down and take everything he said. You see, when he came to the West, wow, we got the complete works from that. A living Buddha was there among us, telling us everything we needed to know, soup to nuts, about spirituality, basically, focused around Vedanta particularly. But it was not that way with Buddha's time, so they had to sit around, meditate, these 500 arhats, and that's how the Dhammapada got congealed, evidently, so that we knew what Lord Buddha said. And so one of the sayings is like that. He's talking about arhat. And remember, one of the drawbacks, they say, I don't know if it really is myself, is that you couldn't be an arhat or a Buddhist if you weren't a monk. That was the problem. That's why they call it the lesser vehicle, or the narrow vehicle they call it sometimes. So it wasn't given out to the householders. It just, it wasn't thought that they could benefit by it or even give time to it, which is probably true. I mean, it's somewhat true today, isn't it? When you get these high teachings, how much time can you give to them? Is kind of and how deep is your desire to get free from form? What? I don't want to be free from form. What are you talking about? Besides, there's no such thing as freedom, as formlessness. This is it. So I think there's some sickness in those views myself. And I've practiced to come to know that there is a sickness there, maybe several kind, and you could bring it out in Hinduism too, not just in Buddhism. So dealing with this word self then, I looked into some of the scriptures, both out of Hinayana and Madhyamaka, and then with Atman and with Vedanta, looked into it. You can see them sprinkled around the branches of these trees here on the right-hand side of the chart for you, or left-hand side of the chart. It's from the Manjushri Nama Sangha. So there was, Buddhism is so known for formlessness, and Zen kind of concentrates on that, accents that. But there were a lot of playfulness in Buddhist philosophy in lots of different schools. Of course, we know that even in Zen. There's at least 3 or 4 or 5 schools in Japan. I'm speaking mostly from the Soto Zen today as I speak about it. That was our founders' tradition. But in the Nama Sangha, they're the names of Buddha, or the names of the Lord. And it's kind of hard to speak about it in that terms, yet it exists in Buddhism. There you see some of the examples. The self is called pervasive self, beginningless self, the guardian self of the 3 worlds. Now that has to be a form. You might call the guardian self of the 3 worlds death. Dharma Raja, is looking on to the 3 worlds and how people's, go between forms, human, ancestor, animal, all that kind of thing. But then comes to the 4th level and, Dharma Raja disappears. It's beyond my pay grade, he says. Talk to Mother about the heart chakra. I don't go there. I'm just going to keep my eye fixed here. This is my place as one of the gods, called Yama, to watch these 3 worlds and usher people from one place to another. That's even sometimes in common movies you'll see nowadays and so forth. Oh, death is just a transition. Like I saw one time, somebody was playing with the tarot cards and draws the card death, see. And the person goes, and the tarot card reader says, oh, that's no problem, that's just transition. The next card is a chipmunk, and he goes, oh boy, oh that's a problem, you see. It's funny that it's even gotten into the common element of thinking of people So, what's sour becomes sweet kind of teaching in the Gita. But just mentioning the guardian self of the three worlds, that's in the Manjushri Namasangit. So they are thinking about Buddha in terms of forms, gods, and so forth. Buddha talked about the different gods. And he also quoted out of the Upanishads. It's also the self of primordial purity. These are good English translations I found for these names in the Pali. The Supreme Self, of course, is there. The Buddha Self is there. Once Lord Buddha said, there are two selves here, the small self and the great self. So, that's listed a sloka in the Dhammapada. He actually said that. So, he wasn't averse to using that kind of verbiage or teaching. Of course, one of the most famous is right there in the middle, the Diamond Self. And you go into the Diamond Sutra and Pragyaparamita Sutra, and that's beautiful teaching. That's what Buddhist non-dualists live on. It doesn't matter whether they're Tibetan or Zen, that sutra is the thing for them. They cut their teeth on that for non-duality. That and one other. In fact, that's called the father of Buddhism. And the other teaching they go to is called the mother. So they have this these very powerful scriptures that are, again, like ours, Avadhuta Gita, Ashtavaka Samhita, Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, and we have these very special non-dual scriptures in our tradition that, again, cut our teeth on the higher levels of consciousness. There's the self that is the source of all. I even chanted that in the Svetashvatara Upanishad when we started class this afternoon. Meditate upon the Lord as your own self, seated in your own heart. How about that for a start? And to cut away everything else. Cut away ancestors, cut away conventional religion, cut away philosophy, and just get right to the fact of the matter. Oh, he's telling me to meditate on my own self, seated in my own heart, as the Lord. That's the poignant part, right? As the Lord. Anyone can sit down and meditate upon their own self, but as the Lord? Who's going to do that? Who's going to have the tenacity or the temerity, actually, to call himself the Lord? I am that. The great Mahavakyas. Only someone who's seen that and knows it, like the Buddha. So also call it the self of substance and the wholly immovable self. Also the single self and also the self of thusness. These are all explanations for the self that I found. And the combination of the Sangit and in Hinayana, Manayama, and Mahayana, and in Advaita Vedanta. So to sort of draw some sort of conclusion out of that, we look at the Tathagata himself. So the Tathagata is like the Buddha. That's the word that they'll give to him. So there he is teaching his students, a very good image for this. And what are the subtle indications? It's like if we're trying to look at what made a Jivan Mukta, and we'd probably look at Shankara and read his characteristics. We see that's in the Vivekachudam, and he has a long list of that. I've put that on a chart for you. In Footfall's book, it's there now. But in Buddhism, how would you indicate, because of the subtlety of that great being, a Tathagata? So number one point there is no foundation for an individual self there. The only, again, look at Sri Ramakrishna, who are you? I don't know. I'm not even going to think about a self because it just doesn't compute to me. Selfless. That's a good word, in virtue, to be selfless. I was reading Swami Vivekananda just the other day, and he said, selflessness is God. No, wait, I'm sorry. Unselfishness is God. That's what I meant to say. So, unselfishness is God. There's a, three-word English mantra. That's how he put it. So, unselflessness, some unselfishness. It translates perfectly. So, that's where you would see this light of Brahman shining through, most apparently, even off their pores, as they said, the Noble Eight, who are the fathers of those arhats we're talking about, saw that light coming off of Buddha. And they saw it off of Christ, and Holy Mother used to see it off of Sri Ramakrishna. A second point is free of conditioned phenomena. So, we already said that just a few minutes ago, really. Well, you just get sucked into nature and everything that goes on there. And nature is, is the kind of the cosmic side of it. But people are the individualized or personalized side of it. So you've got these two things, the antics of people, the actions of people. I think antics is usually a better word. But the actions of people and the phenomena of nature, you're caught between these two. And you're going like this, and that's a tennis game at first, but pretty soon, it's a ping pong match between professionals. You can't make your mind single-pointed in that. You're going to have to practice the yoga of transcendence, or detachment, or witness consciousness, or ways in which Zen and Advaita have told you, like we saw some of them here on this chart. So, free of conditioned phenomena is a tall order for people. Conditioned phenomena is just a mass of distractions. It's like, that's where Maya comes from, see. It's by people not focusing on the single truth and the single ishtam and the Dharma that reveals it, and concentrating itself on Vyavaharika, or worldliness, relativity, and even lower knowledge, devoid of higher knowledge. Knowledge becomes a danger to you, Krishna says in the Gita, if it doesn't lead to truth. How long are we going to entertain lower knowledge and just stick to it and not heed his words? And then fall into this thicket of creeping vines, see? Or have we already fallen there, most of us? And it's like choking us. Give me a knife. Give me a sword. I can't cut it with a sword. I need a knife first. See? Transcendent of men, gods, and Mara. Mara is really a name for the devil, and if you want to put it close to Christian tradition. Buddha had to fight Mara in his long sit under the bo tree. Mara came to him in several forms. It's like Christ in the wilderness kind of teaching. So it's pretty much of the own ego that this is happening, your own projection of evil, and how you have to deal with it. Dark night of the soul is called also, that God seems to abandon you, and you've just got this very difficult loss of your ox. You see, maybe not just the loss of your ox, never thinking you'll ever find it again. It's gone forever. And of course it's still right there, probably trying to signal you somehow. So, transcendent of man, gods, that's why I just brought up nature on one side as a phenomena at a cosmic level, and people at the individual and collective level are these two vice ends that are, squeezing people. And men and gods, then you've got Mara on the other side. It's kind of a creation of your own imagination. Because Mara can also be a substitute for our word Maya. They're very close, like Mayoi and Maya. The fourth point here, free of suffering and other burdens. Remember, we're talking about what? The indications of an illumined soul in Buddhism. A Tathagata. Who is Tathagata Garbha? He's a mass of consciousness. He's not an individual anymore. He doesn't have an ego, so that's why the first one, he can't admit to an individual self anymore. And he's not obsessed with nature for all it can offer, so he doesn't have He isn't attached to conditioned phenomena anymore. And he's gone beyond human beings and gods, the realms of those, the lokas of those. And so he can't be anymore under their influence. Kamalakanta sings that. When you see the feet of Brahman, and get the feet of Brahman as your treasure, all the gods and goddesses will fall below you. And you'll be their master now. Whereas before in nature, they were your master. You can think that you're mastering nature for its resources, but there's a God for each one of those aspects that you're mastering that's not happy that you think that way. And so the karma will come back on it, see, in some form or another. So we would say neither of these traditions believes in God as being a judgmental being. God's not an individual. It's not matter, it's not thought, it's not energy, it's none of the things that people think it is. But it's not non-existent. It is existence itself. And everyone would say that about everything, including nature. It exists. But then some things exist on the surface and disappear at the depths. But that doesn't happen with Brahman. It's not apparent at the surface, but it appears at the depths. You see? Rub your eyes, look again. Get rid of your Zen sickness and see the truth through the Buddha, the body of the Buddha's teachings. The Dharmakaya, it's called. It's basically what we're immersing ourselves in for the last 2.5 hours or more. In fact, we probably only have enough time to finish this chart. The Tathagata is also free of suffering and other burdens, free of mental projections and emotions, which is why these sicknesses, a lot of them include this problem with emotionalism, and why the West, particularly America, is just inundated by emotional reaction to everything. We have to become like elephants. We have to become like oceans into which elephants move, instead of small little village ponds in which elephants move. Because a village pond will go crazy with waves. I saw that once happen in India when an elephant got in it. All the bathers, Hindu people, were getting out because the elephant caused such a stir in that little pond. This is out near where Swami Premananda lived when he was a boy. And then I heard later the teaching of how these great souls sit and things that would, stir up all sorts of havoc and hubbub in other people's minds, hit their mind and they just don't even you don't even see an eyelid blink, you see. And that's like an elephant going into an ocean. So we have to become that great that unreal things don't affect us anymore. We have to see them as they approach the ocean as being unreal. Not wait till afterwards and see how we deal with it. It has to be based on this precognitive truth, a nice word that Buddhism liked to borrow, precognition. You have to know this before the facts. There is a way to proceed knowing after, right? It's one of the 6 proofs of truth we studied a year ago or so. But better to know before the fact, to have this precognitive wisdom. Pragya. Pragyaparam. Finally, we have abandoning the 5 skandhas. And these are, of course, takes us into a whole different chart, which I didn't bring with me. But you don't want things like hatred and aversion and greed and those things mucking up the already muddy waters, you see. It's like you have muddy waters, then you have green scum. So you've got officer pond scum twice, you see. Twice over. How are you going to see through that? There's the beautiful quotes that I found for this chart. Samantra Bhadra, the all-creative King Tantra scripture, this great expression of the Buddha, said, "The root of all beings is nothing else but one self. I am that place in which existence resides." About face, right? Just tell the whole army about face. And it walks away and leaves you alone with this realization that existence has not come out of, I have not come out of existence. I am the place in which existence exists, including all the phenomena which presupposes otherwise. And that's how they sit as the Buddha for 50 days and nights, or in the wilderness for 12 days a night, or whatever length of time they take to show the world that I am Atma Brahma, or Tattvamasi, or Prajnanam Brahma. There's that word again, pragya. Or as Swamiji put it, the self is all in all, none else exists, and thou art that. Say Om Tat Sat Om, right? Beautiful song of the Sannyasin. Another beautiful quote for this chart, because we put Tathagata next to Atman in this one, whereas over here we're putting Zen Buddhist sayings in Japanese next to the Advaita Vedanta. This is all, an introduction to the 10 stages of oxherding and the 9 stages of realization of non-duality and Advaita Vedanta. We'll start off with that next week. And you also got to see a little bit about Zen sickness, so that you'd know that that exists in their tradition too, not just in ours. So this other quote that could wrap things up: each sentient being contains the intrinsic indwelling potency for becoming a Buddha, fully awakened. On the calendar that I received from India as a gift today, I flipped it over to August 8th. I flipped it over, and there was Swami Vivekananda saying, every being has within them the potential for saintliness, for perfection. That was the quote for that particular day, And so here it is for the Buddha, 2,500 years before him. Each sentient being contains the intrinsic indwelling potency for becoming a Buddha. And this is a safer way of putting it than I am God. Let someone else say it, then it becomes that thou art. You see. Let someone else call you God, don't call yourself God. Then it might work better, you see. The ego won't react and so forth. There won't be any emotionalism and philosophical confusion, Bhranti darshan and so forth. Oh, I hear that. Let me take that in and think about it, you see. Let the light come, the light of higher understanding come, and infill me. Whether I have to pray for it, which is one step, a way of doing it, or whether I have to meditate, or whether I have to willfully bring it to me by listening to the Dharma. One final, because we're borrowing from the Tantras here, one final quote is, the universal self sports through entities via samadhi. It performs deeds and works while stationed at one immovable post. The Guhya Samaja Tantra says that. So, you might say those tantras contained within them, they're very ancient too, contained within them everything that the Buddha was going to teach in the future, because Tantra and Buddhism made a very fine hybrid together. Like yoga and Tantra also makes a good hybrid. And I'm saying here that I think Zen and Advaita Vedanta is even maybe better than a hybrid. It's just, two sides of the same coin, or maybe the same flower with different colored petals. It's just proposing this non-duality, if we want to use an easy word for it, that this non-duality is the truth of life and existence. And it's in the very essence and nature of everyone. Everyone from the ignorant to the practitioner to the fully illumined has that, as is said here, by Lord Buddha and by Swami Vivekananda. So here we'll end with a chant. Om Sato Ma Sadgamoya Tamaso Ma Joytir Gamoya Mrichor Ma Amritam Gamoya Abira Mayedi Rudrayate Dakshinam Mukam Denamam Pahi Nicham Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from lower truth to higher truth. Lead us from the unreal to the real. And lead us from the illusion of death to eternal life. Reach us through and through, O Lord and Mother, with thy sweet and benign presence. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.